So, been a while. Made another game. Surprise, I guess. I've been working on this for a while, so I'm here today to critique it and give my 2 cents on the final product. Yeah, let's go. Wait, if you haven't played the game, play it on my website. Link is, you know the rest. Lego. Okay, so the main objective of the game is to collect keys in order to escape or leave the game, essentially. The way you go about finding these keys is by exploring the map and looking into areas that you might think the keys would be. Some areas are more difficult to reach than others, and that's where you have to use your platforming skills in order to make it up to the key and collect it. And some areas actually obtaining the key is the difficult part. I'll go into that later. In the game, it's easy to find the first two keys. Well, relatively easy to find the first two keys, but the third key requires a bit of thinking to figure out where it is, and also to actually obtain the third key, it's a bit more difficult than the first two, since the third key isn't like the traditional other keys, isn't like another traditional pickup. Spoiler warnings ahead, you've been warned. So, for the third key, the location of the third key is at the top of the mountain in the Nightmare version of the map. After you make it to the top of the mountain, you need to bounce on that bounce pad, and you end up being pushed up to the area where you can get the third key. However, the third key isn't that easy to obtain like the other two, as I mentioned before. So, the third key is a boss battle. So, you've got to try and defeat the third key by making it hit itself with its key attack 3 times, and then that's when the big key despawns and you get a key pickup. That's when you can actually collect the key. And that's in a nutshell how you get the third key. So essentially, it's classic platformer stuff. To be honest, my final product kind of departed a lot from the original idea, since I first off needed a working game, and second off, a lot of the features I wanted to add in was just not feasible to do in the time limit. I wanted to make my game originally more scary. However, I wasn't able to do that, since I haven't made a horror game before, and I'm not really sure what goes into making something scary or not. I tried my best to try and make it scary. However, it turned out more cartoony than scary. The original idea for the game followed this creepypasta that I found on the Russian sleep experiment, which essentially details how there was an experiment that happened where 5 prisoners were taken in, and they were essentially forced to stay awake using chemicals. And I wanted to loosely convey that story throughout my game. But in the end, the game ended up not including too much of that. Like, the idea is not as prevalent as I would like it to be, but it is still somewhat prevalent in there. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time talking about my code, since it's not the best code. A lot of the variables aren't camel cased with their variable names, and there's a lot of other errors. Like, for example, for my jumping for my actual character itself, I created a infinitely running for loop, which is something you probably should not do. I would recommend you don't do that. But either way, I'm just gonna try and summarize where my coding issues came from. At the start of the project, I tried to create an entire I tried to create an entire character script, but without using rigid bodies. The issue that arises with that is the fact that that's actively working against Unity and working against Unity's physics system. So it wasn't exactly that smart to do that. But I wanted to. The only reason why I actually started doing it was so that I could try and learn how to code in physics myself or something like that. But I was still using physics.raycasts and that stuff. But the main takeaway from it was I was doing it so that I could learn how to code physics and yeah. However, there is one good thing I took away from that was the what do you call it? The curve equation. The curve equation. There's a function that I created inside of that old player script called curve equation, and that what that essentially does, it returns a value for a point in an x squared curve, an x squared graph. The good thing about that is the fact that it lets me model the player's jump after an x squared curve, and it gives me a bit more control. So yeah, that was one good thing that came out of me experimenting. But yeah, that's enough about the player script. Now, moving on to the main headache, the boss, the key 3 boss script. So the issues that arose with that was actually doing rotation, since I was rotating the model directly. And the issue that comes with rotating the model directly is the fact that its forward, its right vector and its forward vector and its up vector is different compared to what Unity has by default, since it's imported from Blender, which has like a different forward vector, up vector, right vector orientation. So that caused a lot of issues with actually initially rotating the enemy, or initially rotating the boss towards the player. But I did figure it out. Okay, moving on to the models.